What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the channel. This is LH Farms. I am LH, Logan Hanks. Got to do the little bit of housekeeping real quick. If you're watching this, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the little bell over there to notify you of when I drop a new video. It can be a little sporadic at times. Try to do a little better at that, kind of finding my niche here. But one of the things I like to do is to do some of these discussion kind of rants, whatever you want to call them. Today, I got to touch on one that is pretty near and dear to my heart. That is this, I consider it the great disconnect or the great divide between a lot of the people and farmers. Now, overwhelmingly, it's supportive. I see a lot of support for what we do. But the wild thing, and I've realized this through the wonders of social media, is how insanely disconnected some people have become from actual agriculture, modern agriculture as they call it. Where I see that a lot is, and I'll just give this as a quick example. I put up a video on Instagram about losing some ground to solar panels. For starters, and I just assumed that this was clear, but I did not own this farm. I leased it, and it's going into solar panels. I lost some ground last year that I leased, that the landowner sold, and is going into solar panels. So I put up a video kind of explaining how this really is a pretty bad problem we're facing in my area. I've had people reach out, farmers in other areas that are also facing the same thing. So it's not just isolated to my area, but people are losing land to solar panels. And I put that video up, and it was amazing how many people are like, well, good. We need to lose some more of this land. These farmers are killing us. They're poisoning the earth. They're just a bunch of greedy farmers. And honestly, I was really pretty shocked at the amount of hatred towards farmers. And so got me kind of my gears turning, and I wanted to give a little bit, make a little video here and explain the realities of the American farmer. Now, this is the American farmer. I'm an American farmer. That's just what I'm going to touch on. I don't have any insight for you guys on, international outside of the U.S., but I wanted to share some statistics and talk some of the realities of being an American farmer. So I'll start off with this. Let me get a sip of my coffee here this morning. Less than 2%. Now, I got me a little cheat sheet here. I've been preparing. My memory is not that awesome. Less than 2% of the U.S. population farms. And around 80% of that 2%, around 80% of their total farm income came off the farm. So it's kind of misleading a little bit that less than 2% of the population in the U.S. farms, but they're not all full-time farmers. Of that percentage, about 80% of them have to do something else to supplement their income because they don't make enough of a living on the farm. So hopefully I explained that well. The average farm size in the U.S. is 446 acres. Some of these kind of stat websites, they claim that really in order for a farm to be truly profitable, they almost have to be working over 500 acres. Now, this is going to be, there's always caveats. There's always things in there. Like somebody watching can be like, well, I got a 5-acre vegetable, like produce thing, and I'm making a huge profit. Look, there's always outliers. This is an average. So it's going to be across the board, the average here. But if the average farm size is 446 acres, from a statistic standpoint, you need over 500 acres to be profitable. Well, that right there should tell you the average farmer in the U.S. is actually not profitable. So, and I can kind of attest to that. I'll give you a little bit of example of myself here. I'm very open here. I'm working a little over 1,000 acres. Now, I do row crop, the dreaded soybeans and corn that take so much heat, which before somebody tries to attack me on that and say, well, this monocropping guy, I do cover crops on almost all of my acres. So there's never not something growing on my farms. I have cover crops going, typically about a 5 species cover crop. I got, clover, radish, turnip, hairy vetch, and wheat or something going just about all the time. When I don't have a crop growing, that stuff is growing. And I tend to plant green, meaning I plant into the cover crop. I come in and terminate it. Yes, spray it. I spray behind the planter, burn it down, usually do a post-emerge over the top, and then that's it, and I harvest. But I'm working about 1,000, 1,200 acres in that area this year. And in some areas, that's a large farmer. In my area, that's very much a small farmer. And so it's all relative to the area. Our ground out here, we have some really good ground, we have some really terrible ground, and I work a combination of that. But an average farmer in my area is probably about 2,500 acres, because we have guys out here working 800 acres and we have guys out here working almost 30,000 acres. So we have a very wide range. I guess I should share, I am in West Tennessee. We're down here kind of near the Delta area. There's quite a bit of farm ground here. Tennessee is more probably of a cattle state than it is row crop, but the area I'm in is the row crop side. Now, I just wanted to share some of that for you so you can kind of understand a little bit of the finances of this whole thing. Here, average here, I shared that 2,500 up to 30,000 acres. Now, one of the first things people like to attack farmers on is subsidies. I've heard it so many times when somebody's blasting farmers. They're like, well, the government's paying them to farm, paying them to do this. Look, back in the day, guys got some hefty subsidy checks. In particular, cotton farmers got very large checks. You could actually look this up. You could see where, I know guys that were getting, $250,000 checks year after year. I kind of had heard that some of the old cotton guys were paying their rent with the government checks, and the rest was basically, they were making good money. But those days are gone. The subsidies that people hear about, and they think that farmers are just, they're just rolling it with the government money. It's not happening anymore, guys. Look, is there government subsidizing in farming? Yes, there is. And I would say where the majority of that goes actually is crop insurance. We have crop insurance, and they have subsidized that. So I think the government, they pay something like 75% of our cost on crop insurance. But that's not money going in our pockets, guys. This is going into going into the insurance company's pockets. Now, do we receive some payments? Sometimes. I want to add that. Sometimes. This year, I don't think we're going to receive any payments. Last year, if I received a payment, it was very low. Probably the most I ever got would have been when Trump was in office and we were in the battle with China over the trade war. Our prices had absolutely tanked. Right now, beans are around $13 a bushel. Whenever that was going on, they actually had dropped all the way down into like $8 a bushel. So substantially less. And Trump and them did a MFP payment. It was a market facilitation payment or market facilitation program. I don't remember what they called it, but it was MFP payments. And it was to offset the huge drop we took in the markets. And I can't remember what it was. It was a per acre payment. So you got paid for however many acres you farmed. I still did not get a lot of money that year. I'm trying to think. On the high side, it might have been $60,000. And I know for somebody just watching this, and I'm glad, this is why I want to do this video. You might hear, this dude got $60,000. That's more than I make in a year. Okay. For farming, even working 1,000 acres, it's not a stretch for me to have over $700,000 worth of bills. Farming is extremely expensive. It is only getting more expensive. Every year, equipment, seed, fertilizer, chemical, all this seems to be increasing in cost. So $60,000 at the end of the day might help you keep your head above water. And that only happened that year. I have not received a payment like that really since then. Like I said, don't even look like I'm going to receive a payment at all this year. And so these subsidies is something that gets a lot of attention, but doesn't have a lot of information behind it. And I'm speaking from the row crop side. I can't really tell you. I have a few cows of my own, but I don't know. I can't say that there's a payment on the cattle side. Last I heard, the dairy might have been receiving more than the row crop, but I don't remember, to be honest with you, because that's not a sector I'm in. I'm talking row crop farmers right here, the ones that generally get the most heat. We actually don't receive very many subsidies. Most of our subsidization is in the crop insurance side, where the government's paying for that. Now, let me tell you this on the subsidies. I'm actually not a pro-government subsidy guy. My ideal thing would basically be, let's just get rid of them. One, would it make crop insurance more expensive for the farmer? Yeah, probably would. But the capitalist mindset would be that insurance companies would have to lower their costs to stay competitive. So that would probably come down. Now, on the flip side of that, there are guys that can manipulate the system. There's different payment opportunities out there. For me, I'm not trying to look at them, because there is a part of me, it kind of hurts my soul a little bit. I feel like government subsidies is almost it kind of feels a little welfare-ish to me, and I don't particularly like it. Although we are providing a service for something, so guys can argue that, but I don't particularly like the subsidies, because when they happen, it tends to help the big guys more than the little guys, the guys that are working a bunch of ground. And I had made a note here, the top 10% of operations. If we're getting a government payment, here's kind of what you're looking at. The top 10% of operations average around $29 an acre, whereas the average farmers get about $12 an acre. So just to throw a little math at you real quick here, I mean, if you got a guy working, let's say 1,200 acres, he's going to get $12 an acre. That'd be $14,000. That's nothing. That is literally nothing. And again, I know 14,000 probably sounds like a lot to somebody. That's like maybe the note of one piece of equipment that, if you're talking $700,000 worth of bills, $14,000 is not a lot of money. Now, let's say you got a guy working 20,000 acres. He's going to get $29 an acre. That's $580,000. Now, he's got a lot of debt. He's going to have a lot of bills still, but you're talking the difference between $14,000, $580,000. Most of the money is going to the big guys. Where it gets frustrating is some of those guys also know how to manipulate the system. And I've shared this before. When they did the MFP payment, there was this stipulation where you capped at $125,000. If I remember right, it's $125,000. You could not get any more than that. Well, it's based per operation, or entity, as I'll call it. Some of these big operations, they know this, and they've learned that they can create multiple tax entities. It's basically a taxable entity. And you can see this on the map, especially in my area. You can look at who owns the land, these farmers that own it. And it'll be the same farmer that owns it, but it's different names. It'll be different entities that own these different pieces of land. So what some of these big guys do, not all of them, but the kind of dishonest ones, in my opinion, they have 8, 9 tax entities. So he can max out 1, 2, 3. He can max out all of these tax entities because he works enough acreage. He can just claim it on these separate tax entities. And whereas you're supposed to only get 125,000, this dude might be getting 2 million. And so the problem with government subsidies in the form of payments is they get abused and they end up propping up the big guys and not helping those smaller guys. And that to me is what's really frustrating. You almost become too big to fail. And I don't like that. Farming is inherently risky. I mean, in my opinion, you rely on God. You can plant on time, you can spray on time, you can fertilize on time, you can do all these things. At the end of the day, it's out of my hands. Once I put it in the ground, I'm pretty much relying on the big man upstairs to help these crops to grow and thrive and nourish and flourish into something, and for me to survive another year. But that farming is risky. It just comes with the territory. But you get so huge that it almost removes the risk element to it, because if something goes south, I'm propped up by the government. Now again, the big guys, they might know a way to get a payment every year. I don't. But again, I'm not looking to manipulate the system. I don't want to do that. I'm not particularly a fan of the subsidies. So there is and this was something I did want to point out. It says on average, about $75 billion per year is spent in subsidies for agriculture. Now that's for meat, produce, and row crop. That is not all row crop. And from my understanding, I think a lot of that goes more to the cattle side, maybe the dairy or the meat in particular. But 75 billion. Now, a lot of that is going to crop insurance, like I said, but something I do want to point out. Somebody's like, 75 billion. Look, I think we could probably eliminate quite a bit of this, but what's kind of funny is I just looked. The U.S. has given Ukraine $75 billion right now. And I'm like, for me personally, if my tax dollars, if I had to pick, do my tax dollars go to farmers or do they go to Ukraine? I would prefer they go to the farmers and our American farmers, because we're actually paying Ukrainian farmers. As crazy as that sounds, we're buying some of their seed and stuff. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. You can do the research yourself, but I think that's pretty crappy. But regardless, I would rather my American tax dollars be spent on American things. And I have had people, kind of the argument for subsidies is, in a way, agriculture is almost a form of defense, because a country that can't grow its own food is very reliant on another country. Here in the U.S., we obviously can grow our own food. We do import certain things, but in a scenario, we could survive on what we can grow here. If all the farmers essentially went broke except for the top 10% of guys, we would find ourselves probably in a position where we no longer had the capabilities to feed this country. That's kind of the argument for subsidies. They'd say, it might keep some guys' heads above water just enough to keep them trucking. Yes, we have a surplus. That's one of the things a lot of people like to say. Well, we grow more than we need. Okay, we do. That's not a bad thing. It actually hurts us, the farmer, more than you guys. It actually helps you guys, because by us growing a surplus means the prices are going to be cheaper when you go to the grocery store. If supply goes down, demand stays the same, cost will greatly increase. So people that argue we should not be growing these high yields, we should not be producing extra, I hope you have thought about the implications to what that would mean if we actually did lessen our supply. It would mean you're about to spend a lot more money at the grocery store, you're about to spend a lot more money at the fuel pumps, you're about to spend a lot more money at in every avenue. I mean, agriculture, it's not just food, guys. This spreads into clothes, goes into different, the plastics, fuel, all these things. And this is stuff that people like to attack about farming. They're like, we make so much corn, they're having to use it for fuel. It's like, dude, this is actually helping you. If we eliminate that, you're about to spend more money at the fuel pumps. So stop attacking the farmers, man. And the chemicals. Before I finish this video, I'm trying not to get too crazy long-winded for you guys, but the chemical side of things, it also takes a lot of heat. Roundup, it is the boogeyman that everybody likes to attack. If anybody is susceptible to Roundup exposure, you know who it is? The farmers. because we handle this stuff. Now, I've seen studies that say there could be a link to cancer-causing agents in Roundup. On the flip side, I've seen quite a few studies that say there is no link to cancer-causing in there. So it goes both ways. Some people absolutely believe that Roundup is the cause of like virtually every problem that we have going in the country. Do I think chemicals are perfect? No. And that's actually why, that's partly why I've started doing cover crops. I have eliminated one whole pass. I used to do a burn down pass, a pre-emerge, and then a post-emerge. It had been 3 applications that I'd be making. Now I'm doing just an initial burn down behind the planter and then a post-emerge. So I'm eliminating an entire round of spraying. So I'm cutting back. And I would love to eliminate another one if I somehow could, and that's more experimenting with the cover crops. But I'm not some pro-chemical, pro-herbicide guy, but I do realize the necessity right now. And people are quick to say, well, you can do this regenerative thing, do this or that. Look, people, we're talking millions and millions of acres of farmland in the United States. It's not at a place where we can do these practices. The chemicals and things, they allow us to farm and to grow on this scale that we do. And again, if you got a problem with that, rewind this video a little ways back where I talk about supply, demand, and these things, and the necessity of a country being able to feed itself. Go back and listen to that, and then come back to this part. Because, guys, this is the way that it is right now. We don't have a better solution. Some people have argued and said we need to go back to the way we used to. That's a terrible idea because yields would drastically decrease. So we would be back in that boat of same demand, less supply, not good. And if you ever heard of a thing called the Dust Bowl, that came from old practices of tillage, and then you lose all the topsoil. You are truly killing the earth in that case. See, like myself, I practice no-till on everything that I can. And so I am a 99% no-till guy. I have very few acres that I ever do any tillage on. And that is maintaining that level of topsoil. It's allowing certain biome and bacteria and stuff to grow in the soil that's good. It's good for the soil. And cover crops also plays into that. But guys, it doesn't make sense when people say that we're like destroying the earth. Our livelihood comes from the dirt. The better my dirt quality is, typically the better the crops are going to be. The better the crops are going to be, the more money I'm going to make. At the end of the day, people, you got to realize this is a business. Farmers, we are business owners trying to make money. Just like you get up and you go to work every day, you get paid, you want to be able to do things, we're no different than that. Our work just happens to be involving the dirt and being outside, growing things and harvesting these things. It's no different at the end of the day. If we're not making a profit, if we don't make money, you're not going to stay in business. That's when I pointed out at the beginning, the average farm size 446 acres, and you need over 500 to be profitable. These guys, quite a bit, are losing money. And if you look, we're on a drop. We're losing farmers. And it's because guys just can't make it because they're losing so much money. Farming is a business. You got to make a profit to stay in business. I don't know another way to say that and make it stick more, because I have people that think that basically because you're dealing with the land, that all element of money and profit should be removed from the equation. And it's like, okay, if this farmer leaves because he's not making any money, like if he were to take some of these people advice and say, well, you just need to quit if you're in it for the money. Okay, and he quits. All right, I can assure you, the next farmer that comes along and works that ground is going to be doing so to make money. Guys, you got to make money. We literally pour an entire year into this farm of just a lot of hours, quite a bit of hours spent out here getting this ground ready and all that stuff. That's really a silly thing to ask these people, farmers, to do all this work throughout the year and then not care if they make any money. Guys, this is how we survive. This is what we do. I mean, this myself personally, that's how I survive. If there's any questions you have, please comment them below, and I may just do a whole separate video on it. But that's a lot of the things that I have. And I mean, I could go on and on and on, but the disconnect is crazy. People think we're lining our pockets. That was another thing. Last thing I wanted to add. I'm sure a lot of you guys have watched the show Yellowstone. One of the things I think they did really well was show that the Duttons, they got a lot of stuff. They got a big, awesome barns. They got a lot of barns. They got a freaking helicopter, nice like service trucks, house. They got all the spread of the cattle and all this stuff. And basically, from the sounds of it, they're going broke. They're losing money like crazy. And guys, there's a difference between a large net worth and a large bank account. A lot of farmers have a very nice net worth. If you look at their net worth, they're worth several $1 million. If you looked at their bank account, they're not going to have several $1 million in their bank account, because our assets are tied up, or our capital is tied up in assets, meaning land and equipment. So we're not just rolling in cash over here just because you see us having nice things. Some people buy probably nicer things than they really should buy, and probably overextend themselves. But at the end of the day, we're not just deep-pocketed people over here. Most of us are trying to get the necessary equipment to handle everything efficiently that we can. So we're not just rich people running around here playing in the dirt and just spraying like crazy. I mean, Roundup, for instance, to get so much heat, it's 32 ounces to the acre. I'll kind of finish up with this. We spray it 32 ounces to the acre. If you go to the gas station, get one of their like big gulp cups, whatever they call it, you filled that up with Roundup, and then you spread that across an entire acre. I'd almost like for you to walk out an acre and dilute that Roundup and spread it all across that 1 acre. And you would see what a minuscule amount of chemical that even is, because it's also diluted with water. When you spray it, you're not spraying straight Roundup over an acre, but it's diluted with water. And guys, I'm telling you, like, we're making strides, I feel like, to get better when it comes to the herbicide. We're not there yet. We still use Roundup on some applications. But the thing that I'd like to say is, I mean, there's a lot of chemicals out there. There's a lot more chemicals than Roundup out there. I personally believe if Roundup were outlawed today, most of these people that have an issue with Roundup would just come after the next chemical that we use. And at the end of the day, we got to use chemicals right now, guys. We're not to a point where it's scalable across millions and millions of acres to not use chemicals. Because we're not going back to the Dust Bowl era. We're just not going to do that. We're getting further and further away from that because we found the ground is so much better when we no-till it, when we build the soil. We don't make it just wash away. So guys, please, hope you enjoyed that video. If you like this, hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the little bell to notify you when I drop. But comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm not a jerk to you. If you're not a jerk to me, I won't be a jerk to you. So comment a friendly comment. If you disagree with me, comment in a friendly, respectful manner how you disagree, and we can have a good conversation. And like I said, I may make some more videos off of the comments that we may get. So guys, I appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a great one.